people have always kind of wondered, how did you film? How did you film Babylon with the kind of dance hall part and stuff? Now, Chris Menges is, oh God, he's an amazing lighting cameraman. And he had set up that whole dance thing.
Through the inspiration of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia. Jah Rastafari! Go night, lion! Lion! I get the call, come in on the yard. Lion just had to be in the yard.
You know, the windows were blacked out and there was stuff to make it all smoky. And you went to work every day and went into a blues. So while you're in there, probably Shaka would be playing while they were waiting to do it. And said, all right, we're going to run one. And it changed and he'd play the music that was playing. And then it was just like going to work in a blues every single day. So yeah, it was all darkened out and it was just absolutely music and it was just a fun time. There is one time, the first introduction of Warrior Charge, right? We had done it in the studio because at that time we would use the downside, or should I say the downtime. So we would go to studio at night. So I would work from 5 o'clock on the film set. And then with probably an hour break or 2 hours break, I would then go to the recording studio, work through all night, and then back again to the film studio. Now, when we recorded the scene in the garage, when Dredd brings in the dub, right? No one had heard it. We didn't have music. So that whole scene, if you see, I'm working it out in my head and going, that was getting it. And then everyone just got on that, dancing and jumping and doing whatever. But we had no music. There was absolutely no music there. Nothing at all.
You see this cut here, Raya? This cut get one scratch Rasta. Not one other life worth living, you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. We not go scratch it.
Come. It's about to tear up the final.
For Shaka, the story goes that the first time Warrior Charge was played in, as I said, that dancehall situation, right? Shaka came running up and said, what's that? What? And it actually did, in real life, what the idea of that dub was. There was Ital Lion Sound System who could never in a million years beat Shaka, but they came up with this one dub that was special. Well, Shaka then took that one dub and made it special and won competitions and whatever. And it was good for us because at that time, the opinion was that, you know, the English musicians couldn't really drop it, you know. And when people heard that, they said, is it Yappy You? Who is it? This is wicked. And by the time they realised it was the English band Aswad, it was just like too late. It was already a hit, you know what I mean? So give thanks for that.
The sound who will play the mighty Shaka here next week. The winner goes to the final, brothers and sisters. His sound called Ital Lion! So right now, Italyan will go to the final. See? Rastafari.
You have to give respect where respect is due. Franco Rosso and Martin Stellman, along with producer Gavrik Losey, they picked the characters.
Beefy, sir. It's Junior check for this final. Well, I can't up in here.
Shaka gon' beat you, Beefy.
No, man.
Shaka rule.
Yeah?
Shaka rule.
Sunday we see you rule.
You know say, Beefy?
Fuck off.
Beefy, you just big and soft.
Anyway, I check your beefy. Just fuck off, right?
I think the beauty was that they got the cast together. We had days of reading, and I remember Carl Hadgman, who played, Ronnie. The scene where the scene at the end was changed, but the idea was that the police broke in. They formed a line with police dogs and everything, and the youths were on the other side. And then Blue would leave the line where he was, go to the sound system, drop the needle, a bottle would fly through the air and smash. Now, while we were kind of rehearsing this, Carl said, no, that's so far-fetched. Police wouldn't come into a dance with dogs, and they wouldn't stand, and they wouldn't do. And we had to find evidence for him so that he began to understood what could or what couldn't happen. It was, for someone not of a black background, he couldn't imagine that this could happen, that the police would do that. So the point I'm really getting to is that they allowed the characters to, let's use the word season, to season their characters and, call upon memory and that, I think, helped make Babylon kind of, you look at the characters and you go, God, I know someone like that. Yeah, I know that person. Yeah. So, and I think that was what it was. They picked the characters, but they allowed us to let the characters mature in our own way. And that was a great way, I think, of working that made Babylon stand out. And 40 years later, it was released in America because they wouldn't let it be released before that.
Your thing. Fucking call it weed and song system, your thing.
Yeah, I'm man's herbs, man, and use a white rum and betting shop, man. So what happened to that? Everything are cool?
No, sir. It's 2 man inside, yeah. And one at work and one not work, you hear me? And I don't want to subsidize you.
No, I have to subsidize you.
Come in, come. Why you scared from school at Gideon's?
So leave him alone, man.
You see the fine example you are set, eh? Why you scared from school? You must go to school.
You ask sometimes how true to life was Babylon. And I think the proof in the pudding is watching Babylon many years later, and it's just a slice of life. You kind of go, God, I know that. I know that situation, and some parts are still the same. They really haven't changed. I think for Blue's character, there was a situation that, because of the, how it's licensed of 15 or whatever, they said, oh no, unless he's seen in a prison cell at the end of it, sorry for what he's done, that wouldn't make sense. It would have an X, and that was what it would get. They didn't intend to allow it to be seen by, young audiences. And I believe that a lot of blues scenes were changed, but they didn't want to go that far. I mean, I think what was changed was Blue's, not violence, but Blue's anger. So a lot of that was cut out. As an example, after he's come from the police station, right? In the scene, it just has him giving his hat to his younger brother. And we actually filmed it. He actually beats up the stepfather because he's attacking the mother. But to try and avoid a lot of this, because of what there had been a murder, they didn't want it to be like, okay, yeah, you're a vicious, angry person, and yet. So to try and show that, you know, there's no justification for it. Let's say that, but you know, life, it causes the youth to act in ways that they wouldn't have done if they had been allowed, you know, a fair chance at life.
Stuck here till 6 without a break for the same pay. It's a terrific system, that is.
Just do us a favour, just get her off me back, all right? You can take the rest of the afternoon off as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, how come I've always got to sort out your fuck-ups? They've had their lunch, ain't they? I'll be back in an hour.
It all started when we had the scene in the Rasta temple. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but everything in the movie was real. Let's just say everything in the movie was real, okay? So the Dread comes and gives Blue the pipe, okay? And with a little experience, obviously, you know, I obviously wanted it to look real. So, you know, smoke everywhere, great. And Franco went, no, let's do another one. I thought, okay. We did another one, and another one, and another one, progressively getting higher and higher, till in the end, there's one that goes, and I said to him after, the first ones were great. Why? And he said, because Blue's not, it was supposed to be the first time. So he's got to be inexperienced in what he was doing. So that followed through to the end scene. Blue was a rapper, but he wasn't an experienced rapper. So it was trying to make it not perfect, but, you know, to keep that balance of him being, you know, this young person who's angry at the world. And hopefully it came over. I think the hook line got everyone. But lots of scenes, I think, that could have explained Blue a lot more. Like the night that he got picked up by the police, we filmed a scene in the house where you get to understand that Blue's now becoming Dread. They've been going out for quite a few years, and he's going in one direction, Ellie's going in another direction, and they just have an argument. So he decides to go home, and that's when he gets caught by the police. But I think had that been 5 years later, people go, oh God, I know that, man, I know that. I can understand what's going on. So it was ahead of its time, Babylon.
Hey, Blue, come on, man, watch this. What the fuck is that, man? Oh, that's a dog.
Why am I riding? No, but you can just get packed up and ride this thing.
Look, hey, people, man, pull it down. You're going to get killed, guy. That thing going to turn on you. Turn on him, I'll sit on him.
I personally think the criticism that Babylon had was more out of ignorance. And these were people who, as I explained with one of the actors, that lifestyle or experience wasn't understood by many. So it was just, they didn't see that a sound system was educational. It was, our music wasn't played on the radio. You couldn't turn on the radio stations and hear it. So that was our only way of getting rid of that pent up frustration. So I think the criticism wasn't really justified, because it if you're ignorant to a situation, you can't really give an opinion on it. And 40 years later, it was released in Jamaica, it was released in America, and myself and Dennis Bovell travelled through all these places and did Q&As, and found a lot of people who may have criticised it at that time just said it's, in light of what they know now, it's a perfect kind of reflection of life as it was in the 80s. And on a whole, I just think that it's become a classic movie.
Time for the beginning, what the people believe we are thinking.
People kind of said, what was it like working with Shaka on the movie? But Shaka played Shaka. So the bits that people didn't see is, while we were waiting to film something or do something, Shaka would be playing. This would be all day, from in the morning to when there was a rap, Shaka would be playing. So we were in there enjoying the music, and then it would be like, okay, we're going to go for a take now, or rehearsal, and we'll do it. But then, from that finished, and while they were setting up the show, Shaka was playing. Shaka was Shaka. So that was it. It wasn't anything pretending in Shaka, from you. That's what it means. I mean, you heard Babylon, Babylon, Johnny Clark or whatever. It was Shaka. You were working with Shaka. For the movie, the actual soundtrack was done by Dennis Bovell. Dennis Bovell, an absolutely spectacular. I remember years later at the festival hall, Dennis asked me to come and do the end scene. And listening to it live is the most incredible thing, because the scenes come up and you just remember them, and you hear like Beefy's theme, or and it's just, there's not many reggae-based movies, if there is any, that have a soundtrack. There is, like Harder They Come has, songs in it. All the other movies, Countryman, Rockers, they have songs in it, but they don't really have a soundtrack. Now, a soundtrack is where you have a set of music that is made for the film. It extends the vibe that's going on, what's going on, and that's what Dennis did. And I don't think there's any other reggae movie that has a soundtrack, which makes Babylon special again. And because obviously being in Aswad and starring the movie, I kind of had a strong point that, look, we've got to do something. And they said, well, all right, let you do the music. You do the music for the dub. And that's how that came about. Other songs that were kind of issued. So you've got, Yabby U. There's the Yabby U track there. Michael did a track in that. So there's other songs in there that just stand out. The party scene. I mean, it just is all the movie and the music just blend together in one situation. And if it's the party scene, we all know that party scene. We all know that vibe where you go and there's the bow bow bow. It's just wicked.
Exclusive to I.
Import, straight from Jamdown.
Sure, what happened song, man? This not backyard, It's a serious business, me I tell you.
Hello.
No, man. This is where you think you are. Trenchtown? This is Brixton. And it's £50 I want for each of them tune. £50 each.
I think the first time of realizing that Babylon was different was when people were selling VHS tapes for £50. And there was this big market of people buying it. It was never really released properly. And that goes back again to the powers that be fearing the story, not wanting to admit that there was problems of racial tension. And then we had the Broadwater Farm riots, and Lord Scarman asked for that movie to have some kind of understanding of what it meant. And although I've never been able to speak to him to ask him what he thought, I hope that it went a long way for him to understand the sound system culture and, whether he understood what it meant to the young people. But yeah, he asked to see Babylon to understand what it was like for a black youth in London.
I might want to borrow your sound system, I am.
What do you mean borrow my sound system? What happened to you? This two you want?
I want to say, man, the song get mashed up last night, I am.
Get mashed up? You know this car for some negotiation.
I'm blood clot I carry on with about negotiation. Run them out all the post-clot time like that. Just give me the key, man.
Listen, man, I said watch them language, man. Have some respect.
The question that loads of people want to know was there ever a thought about doing a part 2? Martin and I spoke about it. Yeah, there was a basic script. And you never know. Keep watching the space. You never know. There could be a Babylon 2.